Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Wednesday. This is Game Day Live, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio studios here in beautiful New Jersey and somewhere in the boonies of Wisconsin. My good friend Vinnie Parise out on vacation, but couldn't help himself but to make it for Game Day Live. I'm your host, Sam Woo, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network, as we are still on that Cloud 9 high of the big victory over the New York Rangers, coming back from 2-0 deficit. Nico Dawes with the win, Jack Hughes with 2 goals. Everything is looking very hunky-dory right now. Vinny, I saw your blog, or should I say your wonderful piece on pucksandpitchforks.com. Before we preview today's game, tell me what you thought of that game last night.
It went from being on pace, and as always, hello, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. That game went from potentially being one of the worst Devils games I've ever watched, because nothing is worse than just getting your face caved in by your arch rival. Nothing. In any sport, I deal with it with the Chicago Bears. The Green Bay Packers kick their face in every time they play. For a long time, the White Sox got their face caved in by the Twins. You just don't want that to happen, and the Devils were staring that right in the face when the New York Rangers took a 2-0 lead over the New Jersey Devils in the first period. They looked flat. They looked weak. They looked soft.
Lost.
And then in the second period,
lost.
Even though they were at home. They were probably a little confused on why it was half blue and half red in there. It literally looked like a political rally inside of the Prudential Center. And then the second period started.
Mm-hmm.
And when that second period started, the Devils made the best goalie in the NHL so far this season look like a typical Devils goalie this season. And they dropped 5 on him. And they made his life a living heck. And it was just not pretty for the New York Rangers, and it was everything amazing for the New Jersey Devils. They actually scored 6 goals. The prettiest goal of the period was waved off, because who doesn't want to see a goal scored by Jesper Bratt, assisted by Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes? I mean, that is just like future begging, to come out. But you know what my favorite part about the game was, and this was what the blog was themed around, was the fact that it was New Jersey's top players leading the way. I'm talking Jack Hughes. I'm talking Nico Hischier. Dawson Mercer scored his 16th of the season, which is no small amount with 20 games left for a rookie. Yegor Sharangovich scored his 16th of the season. I thought he would have more this year, but his pace since the beginning of February is the pace I thought he would be at. He just got off to a slow start. Excited as heck about him for next year. Dougie Hamilton had a good game on the back end. Ryan Graves. We talk about Gravy Train on this podcast a lot. I feel like he's one of our 3 or 4 most talked about players. I would say he had a great game against the team that drafted him in the New York Rangers. So Nico Dawes was good enough in net. The Rangers have some superstars up front. They're in a playoff spot for a reason. They have Artemi Panarin and Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. All 3 of those guys scored. Fox. Out of those 4 goals that they scored, Fox was the only one by a younger player. Alexis Lafreniere, he had a secondary assist early in the game, but for the most part, this guy's invisible. Capo Caco, where's he? Lafreniere was benched in the later half of the second period and the entire third period, basically. But meanwhile, the Devils' top picks each had 2 points and were the incredibly biggest difference makers on the ice. I think Nico was second on the team in Corsi 4 behind Tatar, who is all of a sudden really playing well. So this Devils team, they have a lot of problems. There's some holes in the defense. Their goaltending needs to be shored up. We'll see if it's Nico Dawes long term. We had a conversation yesterday. We both think it absolutely could be. If they can get better goaltending from the start of the season on, with this core getting even better, like Heischer and Hughes aren't even near their peak at all. Heischer's
Yeah.
23 years old. He's really good two-way player, and he's on pace for 67 points over 82 games.
Yeah.
Which, if your 23-year-old two-way centerman is getting 70-ish points and playing against the other team's top players every shift, that's amazing. And then you got Jack Hughes, who's on pace for, 100 points? I think he's second all-time in Devils history. If the season were to end today, he'd be second all-time in Devils history with points per game in a season or something like that. Like he's 0.99% or 0.09 behind Taylor Hall's point per game in the year he won the Hart Trophy. I mean, what Jack Hughes is doing right now is incredible. And seeing all these young guys lead the way, I can't ask for more, and it's even better when it's against those stinky New York Rangers.
Yeah, and I'm going to add a point right now, Vinny, and you don't have to agree with me, but I'm just going to tell you something about goaltending, about the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers goaltending. I talked about it on the Woo Report before. I talked about it on one of my blogs. I think right now the Rangers may be fool's gold because – and the reason why I'm comparing the New Jersey Devils to the New York Rangers is because it's around about the same time that the Rangers were going to rebuild while the Devils were already rebuilding, had already started to draft Zacha, Mikey McLeod, Jesper Bratt, Nico Heischer. Right around that time, the Rangers sent out season ticket holders. We're going to rebuild. Please be patient. Yada, yada, yada. And then I go on to say that all things changed after Tom Wilson for whatever reason. And then it went from building things the right way to win now. You've got Lafreniere, Capocacco. You hired Gerard Gallant, not Gallant, Gallant, like Ant instead of Aunt, but Gerard Gallant is a veteran's coach, a veteran player's coach, not a developer. And now you're seeing the future suffer right now, which I think is because the philosophy is different. You're seeing Lafreniere and Capocacco not having any big impact at the moment. The Rangers are surviving under a Hart Trophy Vezina, potentially Vezina winning goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, the way the Devils willed themselves into the playoffs with Taylor Hall. It's unsustainable. So all the growing pains that you have suffered as a New Jersey Devils fan comes to this. The Devils' long-term and even medium-term projections and long-term future is so much better on a solid foundation than what the New York Rangers are doing with that, what I call instant gratification. I want to win now. It's very millennial-like. It's only a temporary solution, and I'm not fooled by it. I'm not saying that the Rangers won't be good in 2 or 3 years from now. This year, they're pretty good. They surprised a lot of us, but I think they're mortgaging the future, unlike Tom Fitzgerald and what he has done in the past, this past trade deadline. So look towards Jack Hughes, signed 8 years, $8 million at a discount, and you're talking about a 100-point projection. I'll take it. Nico Heischer back on track, also the captain. He's had a lot on his plate, but now he's putting it all together. I'll take it. Now what comes down to, eventually we'll get to the goaltending. But before we get that number one goaltender, you take that process-oriented approach. We've got the young studs that can score. You can't teach that type of talent. Now it's the commitment to defense. Once you get the commitment to defense, hopefully by then, either Nico Dawes or Mackenzie Blackwood, given the benefit of doubt right now, will become that star big goalie stud, or Tom Fitzgerald gets a number one goaltender, once that process has been completed. Now it's a matter of a commitment to team defense, and you see Kevin Ball coming up. It's all evaluation period. You see the beef coming up with A.J. Greer. Okay, let's show me what you got. Because it seems like Mason Geertsen has an effect on this team like Jim McKenzie or Turner Stevenson of years past. I think right now, enjoy the process, enjoy the steps right now, because you're seeing what's going across the river. I'm going to guarantee you in 2025, the Rangers will be in shambles and the Devils will be very, very close to the Cup Finals. That's what I'm calling right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the Devils.
Did you find holes in my argument? Because I before the pregame, before game day live, I started thinking like a lawyer, and I want to make sure that it's airtight, my case, of why the Devils are going to be so much better down the line in 2-3 years from now.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you, actually. I think there's a very good chance that the Devils, if they do really realize the commitment to defense over the next couple of years, there's a great chance that the scoring that they're able to do, and the scoring really picked up in the second half. It wasn't like this all season long. Jack Hughes was missing for all those games at the beginning. Nico Hischier didn't start to really turn it on until February 1st, but even before that, it was more like around Christmas where he really started to, not be a half point per game, be a point per game. And now when you average that out, he's at about, 2/3 of a point per game on the season. But since February 1st, he's well over point per game. I think that's important. It's harder to find that, in my opinion. The elite scorers, the top two centers, those guys who can help lead you to the promised land. Yeah, I mean, you can sign a goalie that'll have a good year. You could be the Wild and run the table with Cam Talbot, or other teams. The Wild, or not the Wild. I just said the Wild. The Avalanche. They let Grubauer go in the expansion draft, and they went and got Kemper, and he's been just as good. There are ways to go around that. I'm looking at points and found it while you were talking, or goals per game. The Devils have 3.1 points per game, which is good for 15th in the National Hockey League. That's a playoff spot in terms of offense. They're ahead of teams like the Boston Bruins, playoff team. Golden Knights, maybe a playoff team. Most of the teams below them at that point are, start to become, the Rangers. Right below them. Then after that, it starts to become, the Kings, also a playoff team. After that, you start to find some of the non-playoff teams, and the Devils have a long way to go. They're not in the top 10. They're not in the top 5 like we need them to be. But, if you're as far out of the playoffs as the Devils are and you're sitting at 15th in goals for, you're doing something right, because once you start really committing to defense, there could be even more offense that comes from that. So I'm with you. I think by next season, we'll really start to see an improvement to the team overall. But as of right now, I'm liking what I'm seeing from the players that we are told they are going to be counting on for the next decade-ish.
Yeah, and you know what? As much as I didn't see it before, but I saw the light about 6 weeks ago when I wrote that blog on pucksandpitchforks.com about keeping Lindy Ruff at least till next season, the end of next season. No question. He pushed the right buttons last night after that first period. They came out flat. They looked lost. They were undisciplined. The NFZ, all the defensive positioning was way off. They made the adjustments. And then I said on Devils After Dark yesterday that what got the team jump-started? The defense getting involved offensively with quick shots to the net. Ryan Graves scored that goal. Originally, I forgot who maybe Tatar had scored that.
I think it went from Hischier. It went from Hischier to Tatar to Graves.
Yeah. So, but that whole play started with Ryan Graves. No hesitation. Put the puck on net. Don't telegraph the puck. get the big guys and some buzzing around the front of Shesterkin, and boom, goal. You saw what happened. This game, analytics, advanced stats will never measure that kind of momentum emotionally, what that did for the team. It basically, everybody was skating at high RPMs and skating aggressively, and they were swarming the Rangers. The Rangers could not keep up with the Devils in the second and third period for the most part. Could not keep up with them. They had no answers. And really, they had 6 goals in the second period based on a technicality, because it seems like the Devils keep on losing these challenges anytime they score. But it was the right call. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just saying. But the Devils kept the metal to the pedal, or the pedal to the, I don't know, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. And they were full throttle and put that pressure on. Now, with that said, Vinny, I think right now that the Devils, if they can continue this upward trend and continue it tonight with Toronto, another elite team, now we're going to be talking about, okay, next season, the defensively, you're looking at Damon Severson most likely will come back. I don't think they're going to be trading Severson. I hope he stays long term at the right price. And I'm not saying he's going to be cheap, but also you've got to worry about Jesper Bratt. You've got to worry about a few other players. And let me ask you this. Would you bring back PK Subban at the right price? And I'm not talking about league minimum. Would you give him half of what he's making this year on a 1-year deal?
Yeah, as long as there's a commitment to him being like the number 4 or the number 5, sure, I would. If he's taking 4 mil or 3.5 mil to play behind Hamilton, Graves, Severson, and Luke Hughes, in the long term, then yeah, I absolutely would.
You know what? I think he's had a more of a locker room impact on this team than we realize. He's having fun out there for the first time in a long time. I mean, I think he had some fun in Nashville. Definitely had fun in Montreal. But I think, just listening to the players, they've bought in. They still have bought in. I mean, teams that have bad records could easily fall apart and point fingers. Nobody has done that. Shockingly, nobody has done that. And that's team commitment there. That's a prerequisite right there. And that's why I believe if they have the right teachings for now till next year, that defensive commitment needs to happen. And I think what the approach that Lindy Ruff has done has fooled all of us. He's taken a one-by-one approach, just like the power play being one of the worst in history in 40 years has now been acceptable, sometimes pretty good. The penalty kill, remember how 3 straight years going back to John Hines, terrible, but they had this one stretch under Nazardine as the interim head coach. It was pretty good before the COVID 9.5 month shutdown. So again, I think that's where we need to be patient, because there's so many things in hockey: power play, penalty kill, special teams, shootouts, whatever. Certain things, they're just taking one by one at a time. But if you have a great goaltender like Shesterkin, it can mask how really good you are, just the way Taylor Hall was 2017, 2018 season.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Hall carried them into the playoffs. There are plenty of forwards on the Devils that I believe could have that type of impact in the coming years. And that's what we saw against the New York Rangers. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have a bunch of really good game-breaking level forwards themselves. And, those guys are a little more developed, I think, than, the Devils players are. But if one day you told me that Nico Hischier, the way he plays is going to be somewhat similar to John Tavares, maybe not as many assists, but good two-way centerman that really kind of drives the play, then yeah, sure, I'll take it. I compare Hughes more to Mitch Marner rather than I do Austin Matthews, just because Austin Matthews he's like a mix of Jonathan Taves in his prime and Alexander Ovechkin in his prime.
But Jack
There's
Hughes'
really
dad is much nicer than Mitch Marner's dad.
Yeah, that's no doubt about that. You're not going to hear Jack Hughes' dad saying he deserves to be the captain anytime soon and make Hischier feel weird like, Mr.
And
Marner
plus,
did.
if Jack Hughes is hungry and he had a bad game, he gets a meal, but not Mitch.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
sorry.
Exactly. But, Austin Matthews
Sorry, I
is a
shouldn't say that.
He's an elite defensive player that scores 50 goals a season. The Devils don't have that. They're never going to. So other than Austin Matthews, I think there are some similarities between the Leafs and the Devils and the way they build their team, like Nylander. If Jesper Bratt's Nylander the rest of his career, that'd be awesome. Figure out goaltending better than the Leafs did, though, I beg you.
So I wanted your opinion. The Toronto Maple Leafs alternate jersey designed by Justin Bieber. Just when I thought the Devils' third jersey, this is my opinion. I'm not knocking on fans that like the third jersey. If that's your thing, that's fine. I just don't understand it, but that's fine. You like what you like. Not going to criticize you on it. But for me, I hate the Devils' third jersey only because of that spelled out jersey instead of a Devils logo. But what Justin Bieber, that design, the explanation behind it, just when I thought the Devils probably screwed that up, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't know, because it's just asking to get trolled. And maybe that's what's part of it, but that's hideous. That is extremely hideous. Everything about it.
See, I like the idea of the reversible jersey. The yellow is a little funny because I just don't think of the yellow with the Leafs at all. But the normal one when it's not inside out and showing the yellow, I actually thought the black one was kind of interesting. Like the Leafs have never really had anything like that before. I do like the idea if every team in the league created one of these reverse jerseys that you could wear it inside out. I think that'd be kind of fun for fans to experience. But yeah, I guess everybody has their own thoughts on the jerseys and stuff. The Devils' third jersey seemed to be kind of unanimous that it wasn't what everybody wanted. But I don't know. Jerseys are jerseys. Sometimes they look good on the ice.
The only thing, and Scotty agrees with me on this, the only thing on the checklist was the logo, the crest. They got everything else right. I'm not going to criticize everything else. Those jerseys look sweet, except for one thing. And, when I save up a little money this summer, I'm gonna figure out how to make my own third jersey using that current third jersey, and just slap the logo on, and then just have a hint of red on the border. I think that would just look so sharp, so sweet. But that's my opinion, of course, and I don't want to influence anybody like Pete Maggio, who says, "Agree with you 100%, Sam." Well, I appreciate that, but we also want to listen to other people. Facebook Live, Corbin. Ruff's mismanagement of goaltending this year has cost us a lot of points. Playing hurt goalies and expecting to will. Canada road trip, another management problem. Corbin, I agree with you, but something tells me that's by design, not because of stupidity. And I think really the point I was trying to make is, okay, Shesterkin's having this great year. It's very rare do you find a Dominic Hasek that can do these things over a 6 to 12 year period. Eventually, you'll start breaking down. And that's why I think Georgiev, or Georgie V, as I call him, was not traded on trade deadline, because they needed that insurance policy, because that's a lot of work for a goaltender to endure on an 82-game season and also plus playoffs when that comes. I just don't think it's sustainable. A lot of the Devils Stanley Cup runs were done on team defense, playing efficiently and not wearing out Martin Brodeur. And he turned out to play till he was 43, 44 years old because of the wear and tear. Plus, he was always one and done, stop, no rebound goalie. He always gobbled it up. So, and he was a hybrid, not a full butterfly goalie as well.
Yeah, which also, that absolutely helped. But we'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be interesting. Tonight's a big one. I think to kind of veer into tonight's game, playing against a team like the Maple Leafs who are fast, they score a lot of goals. The commitment to defense isn't quite the same as some of the other elite teams in the Eastern Conference. So the over-under set at 7. It's a high over-under. I'm thinking over is a real possibility because both of these teams can absolutely put the puck in the net.
Yeah. Your prediction? Score?
I believe the game's going to go over. I think the Devils are going to win 5-3.
I think it's going to be a 7-6 match. I think it's going to go to overtime or shootout. Devils prevail, and they've got confidence going into Toronto, but they're going to play a very tough team, hostile environment. I don't know. Is it full capacity now in Toronto? I don't know. But I think right now, the Devils, they've got the offensive punch. And that offensive punch, if they can re-sign Bratt to a long-term deal, and possibly if Zacha, hopefully maybe becomes the Zacha of last year to next year, if he's still on the team, could be a very potent top 6. And that's without the big bopper, the finisher that the Devils need. And Tatar's just skating like an animal out there. And I hope to see more of that of him in the future. But Vinny, thank you so much for appearing on your podcast, Game Day Live, on the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network. Also, programming note, State of the Fan address going on during the game, 8 p.m. Eastern. Nick Villano at pucksandpitchforks.com. And I will be talking a little bit about the game, talking about what has happened, the future of the New Jersey Devils, and all that good stuff. And then afterwards, after the game, it's Devils After Dark with, Scotty of Sirius XM Liquid Metal. He and I are going to recap the game that was. It was a fun night last night, Vinny. It was awesome. Everybody on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We were reading comments. We were laughing. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Well, Vinny, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Of course. Absolutely. I love doing it. Can't wait to watch this game and see how the Devils do, and very much looking forward to it.
This is Game Day Live. Till next time, let's go Devils.